entertained? Are you not entertained?
That they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Why so serious?
But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
Well, I'm not doing anything. I want you to get mad. You gotta say, I'm a human being. God damn it! My life has value. I'm as bad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling Community Theater. I'm Vinnie Nardiello. This is episode 3 of our award-winning show. Yes, I've given myself an award. So I'm going to say that we're award-winning. I bring up every week that, we do this show as a way to feature playwrights, new writers, veteran writers. We've debuted new work here, and we're trying to introduce theater to people who maybe can't get to the theater, especially now in a pandemic. Nobody can get to a theater. And, I actually do have some good news. I have good news because I'll tell you right now, I'm trying to schedule the next episode while we're doing this, and people are busy. All right. Writers are busy. Actors are busy now. And it's the first time they've been busy in years. Years, now months, not years, months. First time I'm busy in months. And maybe this means that, theater's starting to come back. Maybe people are starting to, have work again. Maybe they're seeing opportunities for theater. But no matter what, even when theater reopens, I hope we still keep some of this. I still hope we keep some of, I think Zoom started out as like, next best thing, we got to do Zoom. But I like to keep it around. I think that this is going to be a great way for people to get their work heard, get seen, maybe get people interested in theater who've never been interested in theater before. All right. And, what better place to be interested in theater than with this week's show, with my guest. This guy I'm very excited to have on. Let's bring him out now. Sean Lynch.
Hey, what's up, Vinny?
How you doing, Sean?
Pretty good.
Yeah. Now, Sean, you and I know each other from comedy primarily, from stand-up comedy. And you're like a guy who, for about like a year, we worked together constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All over the Northeast.
Then there was about a year where we were together like all the time for shows, like traveling on the road, and then nothing. Then we just have not worked together at all since then, or seen each other. And that's kind of how it goes, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think, about, was it like 3.5 years ago, I moved out to Hollywood, and then I didn't see anybody outside of the West Coast for a long time. And now I'm, hopefully now that I'm back on the East Coast and that the pandemic seems to be ebbing, I'm going to get a chance to hang out with a couple of my old buddies again. Now
you're in Connecticut now, right?
I'm in Stanford, yeah.
Yeah, so you've done New York, LA, now Connecticut. You're kind of like, you're close to the city, but you're outside of that. What's that like now?
It's actually perfect. I've reached an age now where I'm engaged. I'm getting ready to be married, and I want to start a family and all that. And Connecticut's just a good. If you're gonna do it, it's as good a place as any.
Yeah, like I said, I'm in Jersey, so I could see the New York skyline if I crane my neck.
Right. I've been to your house.
That's right, you have.
I've been to your backyard.
Yeah, that's right. So, and there's something nice though about getting that proximity to the city, but without having to deal with it.
I'm shocked that I didn't figure that out sooner. Like I thought I was going to really miss having direct access to the city like that. But it is nice to be able to feel like you're going home when you go home.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, like the old fashioned commuter on the train with their shirt and tie.
I actually like the commute now as like a way to kind of get into my head for a meeting or get it. It gives me like that. It's like a 1-hour elevator ride to my meeting.
I enjoy that too. People would say I was like crazy. Like you're like, oh, you have to drive in or you have to, take a train in or a bus. I always say like, I kind of like that quiet time.
Yeah.
You beforehand, because it is when you're actually in the city, you'll wait to the last possible second to run to your gig.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like tonight. You were here at the last possible second.
Oh, I was running up the
I
steps
know
of
you
my
were.
house to get to this. I was like,
You seem very calm though. You seem like you're okay.
it's all right. Yeah, I've got a kombucha next to me. It's gonna carry me through.
Do you make your own kombucha?
No.
No.
I'm unfortunately I haven't reached that level yet, but you know, it's my go-to wine down now. So
Yeah, my father's wife makes her own kombucha, and it gets worked into conversation pretty often. Whether you're asking or not, you find all about kombucha making.
it's great. I mean, I got turned on to it in LA, and I thought, and then I was like, oh, actually, this kind of hits the spot, like kind of like a beer, only it's good for me.
Mm-hmm. So now tonight we're doing a play called Wildfire Dogs.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, has this been performed before?
No.
Stage?
I literally started writing this about a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'd had the idea for a while, and just one night it just jumped out, and I was like, I think I could do it. I mean, one of the things that kind of inspired that was Ron Barba, who's one of the actors that I've worked with on several projects. We just did a play last year for Edinburgh called Laws of Motion. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I don't know, one night we were joking around, and I remember just thinking, this guy could play DiMaggio. And then every once in a while, I'd be like hanging out with like Fugelsang or like Derek Neal or something like that, and I'd be like, he could be Arthur Miller. I'm like, suddenly, you get ideas, and then you get fired.
Yeah, so normally you think of you have the idea, and then you find the actor. You find the actor, and
Yeah. Well, you and I work with a lot of the same actors and writers, and sometimes the actors just pull it out of you.
Yes. There's times where I find myself.
You find now sometimes when you be writing, you're like, oh, this is a Rick Adonna role.
Well, exactly. And you wind up writing in their voice.
Yeah.
Like you can hear their voice as you're writing it before you even thought about putting them in it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, that he'd sound right saying this.
Yeah.
Now, like me, you've done, comedy writing primarily. Mm-hmm. So is this like a big shift for you now? Do you think that you're sticking more to like
not really.
drama?
In the 90s, like I came to New York in the 90s on a playwriting scholarship. I went to NYU and I studied writing there, and I spent the 90s putting plays up on Theater Row and Circle Rep and a bunch of other places. It wasn't until like the latter part of the 90s that I started getting corrupted by television and stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Like I had a manager and an agent were like, how'd you like to make money instead of doing these little theaters? And I was like, yeah, sure. I like money, and
mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, like, I think I did, I put up 11 plays and 4 one-man shows between 1989 and 2001.
Wow.
And then I just stopped, and all I did was film and television after that. And then last year during the pandemic was the first time I'd ever written a play before. So I wrote this play about the pandemic called Laws of Motion, and it literally pulled me back into theater.
Yeah.
And now that's all I want to write again.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
It's addictive.
Well, what's that?
It's addictive.
Well, it is. And you know what the thing I find with theater, it seems there's so much more. I don't want to like sound like I'm like saying it's easy, because I don't mean easy. What I mean is it seems surmountable. A lot of times in a way that, you may have an idea for a movie.
Yeah.
Or for a screenplay. And the idea of getting that screenplay written and then finding somebody who wants to finance the screenplay and suddenly you're just including so many more people in your vision.
Yeah.
To the point that's no longer your vision, maybe after a while. Whereas theater, I said, you and I are both stand-ups, and I could see the attraction for stand-up comedians because we're used to that idea of like, I wrote this joke, I'm performing it. Like, there's just far less of, I guess gatekeepers, whatever you want to call it, along the way between your vision and the final product. And I think theater kind of provides that.
There's definitely more of a satisfaction of from page to presentation in doing theater, because I have found that really heartbreaking, especially in television. How many times you get fired up in the writer's room and you have this whole vision, and then like one sponsor doesn't like a swear word, and then suddenly the talent doesn't want to say a line a certain way, and next thing you know, the thing that you're seeing on television is barely recognizable from what you yourself created. And there's only so many times that the paycheck makes that okay.
Yeah, and you almost want to give like a disclaimer to everybody, like, just so you know, the jokes that I had in there were much better than this. Like, let me show you the original line there, and you be the judge.
I wish I would pay cash money for somebody to like make a show like that. Like we could just watch you could watch like this episode of Friends that was as good as Mammoth, but like it just got butchered by Warren Littlefield or something.
Yeah, it becomes like unrecognizable to you in some ways, and I think theater still has that. It's it's the playwright's medium.
Yeah,
and where great actors collaborate with you, as opposed to then there's like somebody else saying, no, we can't do this, can't do that.
Yeah, and I think especially with theater, there's a lot more of an allowance for small moments and intimacy. Mm-hmm. Whereas I find with television, it all has to be bombastic. It has to be, although I will say like Amazon and Netflix has been doing some really interesting stuff lately in terms of smaller stories about sort of fringe lifestyles that I think is really kind of cool. But by and large, like that network television stuff, they just want that like 10 laughs per page.
Well, yeah, because you know what, people sitting in a theater, they don't have a remote in their hands to change. They're not going to turn you right off. They're, they have to kind of get into the moment, or they're missing out.
Yeah, and what's great is, not only experiencing, your own work when you're sitting in the dark theater watching, but it's exciting to watch other authors' stuff. Like when the boom came out, to sit in the audience and watch your work and watch what you had to say, both about contemporary stand-up and the sort of the glory days of the 80s and the corruption of the current. It's exciting. It's electric because it's so there. It's immediate. Mm-hmm. You can almost touch the actors and the beats if they're well directed, and they were, and the actors are right. The energy and the intimacy is better than any movie or television. People who have experienced theater before, I'm like, you're missing out, man.
Yeah, well, like I said, I said in my intro, I say it every week here, that I think one of the benefits of these Zoom shows, I think we're going to see people who never thought about going to theater maybe have an interest, maybe, making it more accessible. Because I think that is one of the drawbacks, unfortunately, to live theater is we made it in some ways inaccessible to people. Yeah. It's only performed in certain areas. I think that, one of the pitfalls for a lot of writers is they write to theater audiences. Like, you're like, all right, let's see who's going to be at the theater. Okay, it's going to be in New York City. Everybody's going to be over the age of 60. All right.
Frank Rich likes jokes about Aeschylus. Yeah.
So I think that it maybe, it could afford to be more broad.
Yeah.
Well,
luckily they have, they have guys like us who are used to writing stand-up jokes and television to be able to soften the blow for them.
Well, you gave me a great compliment. You were at opening night of the Boom. You said to me, normally I hate other people's work, but I really enjoyed this.
It's true though. I love that. I love that play. Like I loved it. It was it's also. Obviously there are certain notes that are going to speak to me, but there were just a lot of elements in that play about like the like unearned praise or the sort of defeatist mentality of the guys that we looked up to. Yeah, coming up, there were just a lot of things that really rang true. And I wonder how many of those things would have been allowed if this were done as a pilot.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? Like,
well, you'd have to have that time. Like, we need to make this guy more likable. We need to.
we need an ethnic in there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, so why don't we get onto your play right now?
Oh, cool.
I got my notes here. I'm sorry. I'm digging for them. I should have had them ready. But, maybe we'll bring your actors out and we can introduce them before we start.
Absolutely. The first off is Ron Barba, who is an actor and a comedian that I've worked with for many years. He's going to be reading Joe DiMaggio. And there is Ron Barba.
Mm-hmm.
And glad to have you here, Ron. And also Pete Mizzo, who's going to be reading Eddie. And Pete is an actor that I've worked with many times on many films, plays, TV pilots, you name it. There he is. Hey, Pete, what's happening? So should I give a breakdown of like the scenario of?
Why don't you just give us a little introduction, then we'll get okay. Get reading here.
Well, the play is called The Wildfire Dogs, and it's about a fictional meeting that I imagine between Joe DiMaggio and Arthur Miller at this old bar at the Waldorf Astoria called the Bull and Bear Bar. And I've always been fascinated by how both of those men were married and divorced pretty close to each other to Marilyn Monroe. Mm-hmm. And I always imagine how weird it would be if they ran into each other like 7 or 8 years after Marilyn's death. Like what would that conversation be?
And such two very different yet iconic guys. You would never,
both masters of their individual universes. I mean, Joe DiMaggio may well be one of the greatest baseball players of all time, and Arthur Miller, who's literally considered like the great American playwright. And both of them who were in love with, one of the most iconic American beauties of all time. And both of them failed. Mm-hmm. Failed her and failed the relationship. And I always wondered, like, would they hate each other? Would they love each other? Where were the notes? What would they just run at each other? I think one of the reasons I created Eddie was like somebody has to keep them from killing each other. I just thought, what about a really likable bartender?
Yeah, they don't want to get blood on his floor, so they'll these two Eskimo brothers,
right? Well, also two guys who were both like 6'2", 6'3", and grew up hard and were not averse to fisticuffs and loved their drink. So there's like so many elements there where you have like a tiger and a bear and you just threw them in a bar at midnight, and the potential for either some sort of empathy or disaster. I thought, all right, let's dive in. Let's see where this goes.
All right. Well, while you're going, I'll read the stage directions. I'll turn my camera off and get the guy back here. All right. And all right, so we know who's playing. Ron, you're playing Joe, and
I'm going to be playing Arthur Miller, and Pete will be playing Eddie, the bartender.
All right. Okay. Wildfire Dogs. Joe DiMaggio, 55, a tall, handsome, thinning gray hair, wearing an expensive suit, sits at a bar at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, center stage. Serving him is Eddie, an amiable, portly, middle-aged Irish bartender. Eddie is listening to Joe, who's nursing a sidecar, his third. Lights up as the Mills Brothers' paper doll plays softly on a jukebox.
Reminds me of Wally Pitt. He was a life of the party. Loved his hooch, loved the ladies, loved to gamble. Pretty solid first baseman. So one day, he shows up for an afternoon game in the Bronx, and he's hungover. $2,000 in the hole for the ponies. It wasn't one of his best days. And then he turns to the manager and he asks if he can sit the game out. So Mike pulls his kid up from the bench. He's got some talent. Figured he's got some talent. You know what his name was?
Melot?
You wise ass. Who the hell do you think I am? Grandpa Moses? It was none other than Lou Gehrig.
Jeez, don't that beat all?
Brother, you ain't whistling Dixie. I never saw Wally in the Bronx again. Yogi saw him in the airport in Tampa a few years ago. He was selling insurance. That story came out sadder than it should have.
Hey, it's a steady living. Felt it could do worse.
Well, you know what it ain't.
It ain't holding first base for the Yankees. Well, then again, what is?
You got that right. Hit me again, Eddie.
My pleasure, sir.
Well, call me Joe. There's no need to stand on ceremony. I shit the same color as you.
Remind me to throw that on the pillow.
Oh, Don Rickles over here. Oh, the late show's a little light.
I'll be here all week, folks. Watch out for the late show, folks. I tend to dip in the blue ink, if you know what I mean.
Hey, Eddie, did I tell you what those Madison Avenue pricks offered me for the what do you call it, the coffee thing?
The coffee maker commercial for the TV.
Yeah, they call it Mr. Coffee, and they got me hawking it on TV.
Sounds like a Jim Dandy payday.
It ain't 2 bits.
I can imagine.
I tell you, though, it's a genuine pain in the ass. I mean, they have you say a line or two, but you got 5 suits, 3 lawyers, and some fruit sitting at a table 20 feet from the shoot, and they all want to put their beaks in and suggest a different way of saying these 2 or 3 lines. And
I've seen the other day during the news. You look great.
I sound a schmo.
People like to see you. They trust you. You're a legend. They pay you for the trust.
Yeah, I suppose. It seems like a dishonest way to turn a buck.
Beats pulling pints in a hotel.
It ain't all bad.
Some days it's swell. Did I ever tell you about the time I met Joe DiMaggio?
I'm going to go back there and put my foot in your ass. You meet a hell of a lot of ball players behind the wood?
Yes, a lot of Broadway folks. They got some big Broadway playwrights staying here, plenty of Boffo actresses. One time, Kirk Douglas. Ain't dull.
Hey, you know who could throw him back like the Dickens was Jackie Gleason. Barrel of laughs, really. He had me going one night at Toots, or was it? No. It was the 21 Club. It just landed the wisecracks left and right and center. He's singing dirty Irish limericks.
Boy, that must have been the tops.
I tell you, you take a girl for a steak and a bottle of bubbly and a joint like that.
Home run?
Arthur Miller, a tall, handsome, bookish-looking fellow, late 50s, wearing a casual suit and fedora, enters the bar. He takes off his hat and enters. Joe motions to respond, but his brain is broken by the sight of the new patron. He stares ahead silently, gathering his wits.
Is it too late?
No, sir. We don't shut for a bit.
Good to hear. It wasn't the case in Boston. I'll tell you, they nail those doors closed at 1 a.m.
Is that where you're from?
Technically, Connecticut. I was doing a preview for a show in Boston.
Oh, yeah? You a director? You look like a famous director.
He's a playwright. He wrote a bunch of Broadway stuff, like Death of the Salesman and The Witch Trials and
The Crucible? You're Arthur Miller? Wow.
Yeah, you don't recognize him from that, though. What really made him famous was his second or third wife. She was she was a beautiful star that put his mug on a lot of papers and TV, being her
Eddie does the math in his head, and the fear washes over him. This can't end well.
Hi, Joe. Yeah, every time I'm in the city, I always wonder, is today the day that I'm going to run into him?
Yeah, the law of averages. Makes sense. I guess we were due.
Would you rather I leave?
No, it's a free country. You stay at the hotel, knock yourself out.
May I buy you?
Don't push your luck. You can keep your money. I got plenty.
I believe it. I saw you on the TV.
I don't mind if you sit here and drink, but if you don't mind, I'd rather just sit here and enjoy my.
Oh, of course. Could I have a gin and tonic?
Lime?
Please. Yep.
My wife was a big fan of The Crucible. She grew up near Salem.
Oh, lovely part of the country.
Dog shit baseball team.
I guess they make up for it with the great seafood and the foliage.
That's the leaves, right?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Especially this time of year. I'm Eddie, by the way.
Oh, call me Arthur. Is the kitchen?
I'm afraid not. Kitchen closes around 10 p.m. The cook is usually blotto by 9 p.m.
Okay. Any peanuts or?
Let me see what I can fetch from the back. Joe, can I?
20 cc's of the hooch, doctor.
All right, 2 swigs of the rock gut stat.
That's a good lad.
Eddie makes the cocktails quick and scoots off stage left.
You know, I read in the Times recently.
See, I thought I would be a swell guy by letting you stay for a drink, and you're going to louse it up with polite conversation.
I don't remember asking permission. I simply asked if my being here made you uncomfortable.
Is that what you said?
That was my intention, yes.
But that ain't how you phrased it. You missed your calling as a lawyer.
Yeah, and you followed your calling as a bully, Joe.
So, what? You egg me on till I break your face and then you sue me?
Unlike everyone else in your life, Joe, I'm not in awe of you, and I'm not afraid of you. I came in here for a drink. You happen to be here. While that may be unfortunate.
What is this?
What?
This.
What this?
Did you know I was in here?
I don't care. I'm in town for a premiere.
Oh, what? Did you write another exploitation piece on her?
I based one character in one play.
It was very disrespectful.
You're gonna criticize my process.
You said hurtful things about a woman I loved. Disgrazia.
I said truthful things about a woman I loved. I'm sorry if you felt they were untrue or unfair. I tried to be honest. I had real feelings for her, but you had to know. Loving her was like trying to pin down a cloud. No one could compete with her love affair with a million eyes and 100 cameras.
No one could compete with her love with me.
You said with. Why didn't you say for?
Is that supposed to be some kind of barstool shrink bullshit?
No, I have no doubt about your sincerity for Marilyn.
You say her name out loud even once, and it's Knuckles.
If you're such a tough guy, I'm sure you're man enough to admit the truth.
Oh, yeah, whose truth?
It took a lot out of you, loving her.
It was worth every scar.
I don't know if I can agree.
That's because you never loved her. You just wanted her. Everybody wanted a piece of her. I wanted to take care of her, protect her, cherish her.
It sounds like an inscription on a gilded cage.
And what did you want?
I thought that I could save her.
From me?
From herself. But people aren't answers, and they can't cure the other person's damage. It's not how love works.
Yeah. Well, if you're so wise, then why did you fail at loving her?
Love can't save anyone. I mean, it helps. It heals. But it never fixes people.
Yeah, if we stayed together, she'd still be here. I know that.
It sounds like a pretty cruel thing to do to yourself. I mean, you don't know.
You don't fucking know. And the sick thing about you, Miller, is you don't care. Oh, gee, The woman I supposedly love is dead. Isn't that curious? Oh, let me make some bullshit theory about it in my new play. Must be nice. Sitting up there on your intellectual pedestal. You didn't suffer because you didn't love her. You didn't understand her.
That's not fair, Joe. That is not true. I knew what she told me. I knew what I saw, what I felt. You don't have to be Pagliacci to know suffering. I took it out on the page. My feelings aren't. I feel. I feel things. I wrestle with them. I try to make sense of them. Writing helps me see them clearly. When she and I parted ways, I needed clarity a hell of a lot more than I needed solace. I mean, maybe I didn't know. Maybe I desperately wanted to know. Like, what was she chasing or running from? I mean, who knows what all those years of childhood abandonment and adolescent sexual abuse and drugs and booze did to her mind. Whatever it was, stardom didn't fix it. If anything, I think it somehow compounded it. She was so smart and strong, but her wounds ran very deep, and the defenses were just so fucking painful.
They share a 20-yard stare that ends in eye contact.
Yeah. She sure knew how to hurt a guy.
I mean, she learned how to weaponize her beauty. You know, I suppose she had to.
I gave her a way out.
Under lock and key.
You're talking dangerously out of your ass.
I talked to her for hours and days, years. That was the crux of our relationships, the phone calls, the late night chats. She told me everything, and she trusted me. I'll tell you this, Joe. She knew how much you loved her. And you lived rent-free in her heart always. You just held on a little too tight. I mean, maybe it was out of fear.
Maybe I saw what was coming.
There were days where I think she did too.
And you didn't think twice about tossing her aside when you were done with her. She told me that.
No. No. When we were shooting The Misfits, I met someone. She was kind and mature and capable of the sort of love that I needed. I can't simply bask in adoration or lust. It's too fleeting. Sure, when you're young, you can allow yourself to be consumed by infatuation, but you can't build on that. I mean, attraction is a phase. It begins to dissipate the moment it's quenched.
You got all the answers.
I got one answer.
Yeah, so what's her name, huh? What did your new wife have that she didn't?
Honestly, an interest in people and things outside of herself.
Hey, she had a big heart.
She did. A damaged, broken heart. And it lived behind a wall of vanity and avarice.
She said you did this. You hide behind your brains.
She did say it. She did accuse me of that on occasion. You had my number. She was perceptive.
Yeah. Most folks never saw that. They just thought she was some blonde ditz.
And she really wanted people to see that there was more. And there sure was.
Yeah. Well, that's the first thing you said, right?
Eddie returns from the back with a bowl of pretzels, a cup of peanuts, and a cup of olives.
Behold, gents, a movable feast. Sorry I couldn't do better.
This is fine. Thank you.
You done good, my friend.
Another round?
Thanks.
Yes, please.
Same way?
Yep.
Yep, what works for me.
I tell you, I'd give my right arm for a fresh loaf of focaccia.
Oh, I can't touch this stuff.
Want bread?
Yeah, I drove a bread truck as a teenager in Queens. The smell, it's lovely at first, but
Well, yeah, try cleaning your dad's fishing boat. There's a stink for you.
that's right. Your dad was a fisherman in San Francisco, right?
Yep. Yeah. I thought your family was rich.
I mean, they were until the crash in '29. Then we moved to Queens, and my siblings and I worked a string of bum jobs just to keep the family fed. I mean, that's the other reason I hate bread. I usually stole a few loaves off the truck for the family after a run. After a few years of nothing but stale bread and fish head soup.
Oh, fish head soup. Christ. Oh, I'd rather eat my freaking glove. You remember all those crazy diets she had?
Oh, yeah. It's yeah. My favorite was black coffee, grapefruit, and spinach.
Ooh, her poor keister.
My favorite thing was when she would eat nothing but rabbit food for a month, and then as soon as the shoot was over, she would make a big hot fudge.
That thing would be the size of a crosstown bus.
Hey, it looked like a cornucopia of diabetes.
And she'd dive in there like it owed her money.
Just chocolate all over.
They remember and share the silence. Eddie emerges from the back.
Fellas, can I get you anything else? I'm going to start cleaning otherwise. It's going to be...
Sure. I'll take the bill.
I'll tell you what. Last round's on me.
Oh, much obliged. Can I also order three shots?
Sure. Gin?
Joe? Bourbon?
Yeah, why not?
Eddie pours the 3 shots as Arthur leaves a $20 bill on the bar.
Keep the change.
Thanks.
Raising his shot glass with Joe and Eddie.
Taps and friends.
To Norma Jean.
They raise their glasses and shoot the bourbon.
Cheers, gents.
You ever get back to California, Joe?
Holidays mostly. I still got a lot of family in the San Francisco Bay. Why, you ask?
Did you hear about the wildfires in Santa Ana?
Yeah, that's some tragic stuff. Real sad case.
I was reading an article in the National Geographic about the California wildfires there in Santa Ana. And evidently they've trained these dogs to sniff out and identify the ashes of the victims of the fires.
How the hell they can.
No, the dogs have thousands of receptors in their noses. They're incredibly keen in terms of their olfactory talents.
Huh. I'll be damned. The canine coroner crusaders.
Yeah, this sex rate with the dogs is really amazing.
Yeah, well, a fat load of good it does the dead.
True, but then again, I believe it's more for the loved ones of the victims, the deceased. I mean, it gives them something to remember them, some physical evidence to fill the urn, so to speak.
I don't want to be cremated. Bury me at Holy Cross Cemetery.
So be my grave without a name, When it comes to be my day, the only marker I need are the ones I leave.
Have you ever been to a grave at Holy Cross? I bought the plot. I paid for the casket, the stone, the funeral. A lot of people turned out. I didn't see you there.
You're welcome. You want to hear the oldest joke in recorded history? It was written 1,920 years ago, and it always stuck with me.
Does it still have legs?
Oh, well, yeah. Ready?
Yeah, let it rip.
An old misogynist is attending his wife's funeral in a cemetery when someone passing by asks, "Who rests in peace here?" "I do," he answers, now that she's gone.
Oh, rim shot, followed by a couple of raspberries.
Yeah, Lord knows how it was received in its day, but the words themselves have endured for centuries. So there's that.
Yeah, I wouldn't close with that joke unless you like your vegetables airborne.
Well, I think that was as a high a note as I can exit on. Believe it or not, it was good seeing you, Joe. I wish it hadn't taken so long.
It took as long as it had to.
He motions to leave. He turns back.
You think she remembers us?
Miller, I think she's been sitting here with us the whole fucking time, and I can't wait till the day I can see her face too.
That's a hell of a thing to look forward to.
Yeah, well, it beats looking back. Seems like guys our age.
That's the goddamn truth.
Arthur stands, salutes, and leaves. Joe nods in return as Eddie cleans the bar, and Joe slowly finishes his drink. Lights down slowly as music plays. The ink spots, if I didn't care. Joe sits finishing his drink as lighting changes him to a silhouette. Upstage left, Arthur settles in his room, puts his hand coat on a rack, rolls up his sleeves, and walks over to a desk. He begins typing the last words and reads them aloud.
In the end, Joe and I were simply the inept custodians of a fierce and broken heart. We could desire her, console her, and cherish her, but we simply lacked the tools and skills to repair the damage done. Our time with her was as much a vigil as a courtship. There we sat like two lonesome old dogs, waiting for a long-deceased mistress who would never return. Perhaps Marilyn found peace in the arms of something eternal, or the quiet, dark ocean of the stars. They say all the stars in the sky are already dead. What we perceive to be as tiny illuminations is really a funeral pyre of a vast, powerful, beautiful, and distant supernova, taking its final bow and leaving a glimmer in its wake.
He takes a glass of gin, sits next to his typewriter, and toasts the air.
To Norma Jean.
And curtain. There they are.
Oh, nicely done.
All right. Great job, guys. Really enjoyed that. Really did.
It's fun.
Normally I hate other people's work. But not this time. So
And it all comes around.
What's that?
And it all comes around.
Yeah. So, there's been a few, plays where it's the fictionalized meeting. I know Steve Martin had one with, was it Picasso and Einstein,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And, we just saw, a big one was One Night in Miami. It was turned into a movie, with, when you're dealing with like real life people. Now, you've never met DiMaggio and Arthur Miller, I assume.
I have met Arthur Miller, but I never met
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so you have. But, what goes into writing real people in a fictionalized setting? Do you feel like you have to do like a lot more research to capture them?
I think what it was, and this is the first time I've ever done this. I've never been somebody who does a lot of research before he writes, because usually most of my stuff is contemporary. But with this one, I read and I read and I read every article about the histories of both of these characters. And then I started watching chronologically every sports interview pre and post Maryland that I could. And not only did I start noticing, some interesting things about their language, but just the ways they would be sort of aversive about the subject or whatnot. Like, it really was just a lot of studying them and getting a sense of their word choices and getting a sense of their rhythms.
Well, yeah, they speak so differently here. And, Arthur Miller, of course, would be the one who's, with a better grasp on the language, more colorful language. But you could really feel with DiMaggio that, that there is real pain there when he talks.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that comes across. I mean, that's more due to Ron Barber's performance than my writing, but it's one of the reasons why he kind of inspired me to write the character in the first place. I knew he could make him both gigantic and empathetic and menacing and passionate, but still very human. And that was really important. I thought one of the interesting things was, I think DiMaggio and Arthur Miller both loved her in equal measure, but they both had a different set of tools.
Yeah.
Like DiMaggio, just, there's stories about their epic lovemaking and how passionate and steamy and hot their relationship was. And I feel like Arthur Miller was the father figure she never had and was somebody who was going to be a permanent listener and a permanent booster. And I think she needed both of those things. I think she needed both of those things so much from both of those men. And I think both of them were kind of left a little scarred by it.
Yeah, you hear DiMaggio just being like just heartbroken, and
he never recovered.
Just their whole relationship just kind of, and it's funny because this guy DiMaggio's talking about the greatest baseball player playing in the biggest city, American hero really, and no matter what, no matter how big you are, how famous you are, no matter how successful you are, you could still have your heart broken.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter really, you're still capable of that.
Yeah. And I think both of them were going through, though their heartache was different, I think they were both going through the pain of going through the back nine of a glorious career, which I think for both of them, I think it's harder to have reached the heights and then had your career descend than it is to have not reached those heights at all. I think it's twice as heartbreaking to have gone like Orson Welles, to go from being the greatest writer, director, and actor of your time to doing Frozen Pea commercials. It'll just destroy you. And I think
and he sounds so miserable about it. All those recordings of him doing those commercials too. He's like yelling at people.
And I think for DiMaggio doing the talk show circuit and doing these commercials and doing these little baseball sketches and things like that, I think it broke his heart a little.
Yeah.
And I think, he knew how much money was on the table. He wasn't a fool. He wasn't going to turn it down. But I think that's what increased his drinking as much as missing Maryland. Is that all there is? Am I just going to keep trotting out every once in a while for an all-star game and a TV commercial? Is that how I spend the rest of
Well, I think the one thing with both sports and entertainment is that, people look at it as, a youth-based business, especially in sports.
Yeah.
You can argue that you can write forever, but, people love a young writer. They love the idea of the young writer. And an athlete, of course, if by the time you're 35, you're a miracle of if you're still playing,
right. And I think the difference was
you have so much life left to live.
Sure. But I also think Arthur Miller was going through a similar thing. He was barely 30 when he wrote Death of a Salesman and All My Sons. Like, he had peaked at like 30.
Yeah.
And then as many other good plays like The Price, which is, this play takes place in 1968, like right during the premiere of The Price, and The View from a Bridge, as good as any of the other plays that he wrote were, none of it got the attention or the praise that the first 3 plays got.
Yeah.
And I think that really started to wear on him. The time I
And
met him.
how could it though? Like when you write Death of a Salesman, it's like, but the next
Where do
play
you go?
wasn't as good. Well, whose play is?
Yeah. And I think when I was writing it, I was like, that's the bridge. That's that and impoverished childhoods. Like that I wanted to be able to find some beats where the two of them could connect.
Mm-hmm.
Something besides the whole, Marilyn broke my heart too. I don't know.
Yeah, so you definitely capture the one thing I've always heard a story about DiMaggio that I found funny was this is probably about 10, 15 years ago. They discovered his diary, and they were going to auction off his diary.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, DiMaggio, I think, was not like the deepest thinker in the world, especially as a word.
A deep feeler.
Deep feeler.
I think his heart was gigantic, and he
when I say
on an
deep thinker,
operatic level.
I don't want to undersell him or say he was dumb, because it's not. I'm not saying, but I don't think he was always able to write or express himself in the written word those feelings that he had. So his diary, which was going to go up on auction, it's going to sell for millions. It was like, woke up today, had a bagel, went for a walk. Like, it was just basically a documentation of what he did that day. And suddenly nobody
That's not
wanted
too far away from how Hemingway writes. Like 9 sentences. There's gold in those hills, though. There's gold.
So you're right, deep feeler, but I guess maybe had difficulty expressing that, and you can see that in here. You capture that ability. He's expressing himself, but it's definitely not with those kind of words like an Arthur Miller would.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's thanks for saying that. I think it's interesting the way the two men, in the way that they interact with each other. I thought it would be interesting because it would just show how they must have been like to be in a relationship without both of them were kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
How Joe's so direct, and he's so visceral about the way that he talks and he feels. And, depending on whether that's in a positive or negative light, that can either be enchanting or terrifying. Yeah. Whereas Arthur is just so in love with his choice of words that he gets lost in his own brain, and he actually undermines his eloquence because he's so busy hemming and hawing about the perfect words that it just kind of gets muddled.
Yeah. And you wonder, like, how could guys on that level be married to somebody like Marilyn Monroe? Like, how can you be in a relationship with somebody you have to share so much attention with? Because I doubt either of them ever had to share attention before.
No.
No,
I think that's the reason she was able to kind of break them both, because these were guys who had women throw themselves at them their entire careers.
Yeah.
And suddenly there was this woman who was bigger than either of them.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that I was trying to say when Arthur says that line, loving her was like trying to pin down a cloud. Like, it was, I don't think any of us could really understand how famous she was in the 1950s.
Yeah.
I mean, just, it's crazy.
Can you imagine the scrutiny that a DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe level couple would get now, though?
Yeah. Well, they never got a moment's peace. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that was a big point of contention between Joe and Marilyn was Joe wanted intimacy and time at home and quiet time. And she was at a point in her career where she was like, no, are you kidding? I'm a star. This is going to be the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And so, there was things like, she dragged Joe to Japan on their honeymoon so that she could sing for the troops. And he was like, this is our fucking honeymoon. And she's like, yeah, but my fans, like that's. Ugh.
Yeah. And it's hard to share that,
Yeah. Like it's hard to share. I mean, I would imagine it'd be difficult to date any sort of, pro athlete or movie star or something like that when the rest of the world is constantly chasing and gushing after them. That's got to feel like a threat on some level, and that's got to take a toll over time. you know.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Hey, before we wrap up, where'd you meet Arthur Miller? I'd like to hear this.
NYU.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Arthur Miller actually taught some classes in the mid '90s at DWP at NYU, and he taught like little symposiums and stuff like that. And that was I was lucky enough to sit in on one of them, and I mean, to listen to that guy talk. I mean, he's one of those guys who he reminded me of like a sort of a mix of Judd Hirsch, the actor Judd Hirsch from Taxi and a million other things, and I don't know, like Abraham Lincoln. I don't know. He had such a presence, and he had such a power. And now
a guy like that, I wonder how it is for him to teach, because there has to be like, he's dealing with people who don't have his level of talent.
Yeah.
And I wonder if
I asked him a question during one of those things, and it blew me out of the water, which is one of the reasons why I wrote the opening line that I did. He was saying at one point, he said, you have to establish your entire play within the first 8 lines. And being a 21-year-old punk, I raised my hand and I was like, all right, Death of a Salesman. And he looks at me and he goes, Alice, I just couldn't make it. And I was like, and I realized that, like, wow, okay, that's why Arthur, when he enters my play, goes, is it too late?
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of when Ted Williams became a hitting coach. And he would tell people, all right, what you have to do is count the threads on the ball as they come towards you. And nobody could see the way he did. Nobody could have that kind of timing. And they were like, wait, what's he talking about?
You have to count the stitches on the ball as it's whirling at you at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, but he was able to do it. So, and it's more of a guy like Arthur Miller trying to teach at some of that same kind of
but there were so many things that he taught that stuck with like that. And you got to establish it in 8 lines, like these little, like,
I'm going to go back and look at everything I wrote and count the lines now. And did I do it?
Well, what was amazing to me was, here's the greatest writer of the 20th century, and he's explaining writing to us like he's taking apart a car engine and putting it back together again. Mm-hmm. If anything, unlike a lot of the pretentious teachers that I'd gone through at that school who were real lofty and philosophical about the art of writing, he was like, no, you take that line there, you put that there, you blah, 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 boom, you got to play. And that's mind
blowing, man. You're very lucky.
I literally was like, well, there's my tuition right there. I can leave now. And now to do stand-up comedy.
Now I'm gonna write some celebrity death match with this.
Art.
Well, look, he did stuff for a paycheck too. See what happens.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
It did. The Misfits was a paycheck.
Yeah.
The Misfits destroyed his marriage. Like, he had nothing but bad experiences with Hollywood. He hated it. And television, you should hear him talk about Dustin Hoffman's version on television. Like, man.
Oh, he hated it, huh?
He was completely disillusioned by television in general. And why not?
Maybe it's like what we were saying before about having to share that effort.
Yeah, just so artless, and it was like, well, man, there you go, man.
So Ron, did you watch some DiMaggio? Did you watch some interviews with DiMaggio?
Well, I knew we were doing this only a couple days ago, and so yesterday I watched a couple of the YouTubes on him. I did not listen to him. I have not heard him speak. I haven't even tried to invoke trying to copy the way he spoke, but I just watched a couple of the. First, I just read his Wikipedia, and he was at that time one of the greatest baseball players, the accomplishments of all time, and just his relationship with Marilyn and how that how it unfurled, and I saw Sean put a couple things in there about his history, his dad growing up in San Francisco, and his dad was a fisherman, so that was great to read that in the Wikipedia and then see Sean putting them in there. So yeah, and I've always been a Yankee fan, and I've always loved every Yankee, DiMaggio, from the beginning. It was one of the ones that you just in your head. I'd never seen him play. He's a classic, legendary person. So it's so cool to play this kind of a guy. It's really, really fun, really different. I've never played like a celebrity person, so this is like really cool to do too. And I don't want to make it feel any different. I want it to be me, but stuff to a lot of
you don't want to do an impression.
Yeah, that's definitely don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm. I was hoping you were going to tell me I spent 4 days straight at the batting cages. I was just hitting
baseball. I love baseball. So.
I was hitting baseballs for 4 days.
Totally.
It's like a method batting for like 3 days.
They called me. I insist on being called Joe for 4 days and just hung at the batting cages.
I asked a couple people about him, and one of them was like, "Oh, he was an asshole. He was a bad guy."
I've heard that.
And it's who do you listen to? Who's right? And who was an asshole? You hear about these celebrities that were bad at some point in their life. Well, being a celebrity's got to be brutal sometimes, and sometimes you could lash out and be a nasty person. So I don't know. I don't know his what kind of a personality he had truly yet. Maybe I have to do more study on that. More.
I imagine back then it was easier to get away with being an asshole because you weren't being recorded. You weren't being
no phones or anything. Sure.
Think about Mickey Mantle. How rarely was his drinking talked about? Like they protected him.
Right, of course.
Once I made a reference to it in the play. Like evidently these Yankees would go to this club called Toots on like 46th Street and just get wrecked out of their minds every night. Like Toots would not charge a Yankee, so they just go there and just order steaks and scotch all night long. And he just juice all the people that were there to watch DiMaggio get hammered. And the Yankees became his floor show.
Well, I always loved that book. Was it Ball 4? Jim Boone, and just talking about they're drinking in the dugout. They just seems like
hey, Doc Ellis not no hitter on LSD.
More fun maybe. Yeah, that's right.
The ball players were the original rock stars.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, now, okay. So, you guys have anything you want? Looks like we have something we're going to play from Ron here. Ron, do you want to set up what we're looking at?
Well, I don't know if we want to look at it. It's like 4
minutes.
minutes.
I thought we were playing. I'm sorry.
What's that?
Good, because the YouTube link is here. So
the first thing I wanted to say is that we all did a piece. First, it was a play that Sean wrote, and then we've actually put it into it's a film. I mean, would you say a short film?
Yeah, it's a short now, but when we're finished, it'll be a feature length.
Right, and it started off just as an idea that Sean had, Laws of Motion, and so that's kind of how we all, like with Pete now. And Sean, we worked on something before this, so it was really cool. First it was a play, and then we shot it. And then the one that I actually brought is something I did before this, which is I had a concept for a television show about a marijuana bar, because I just was given this idea years ago in California when some guy was like, I walk in the dispensary, I'm like Norm from Cheers, so I thought that'd be a great idea for a show, and so I put together a friend of mine who wrote the movie Summer of Sam, and I did a little kind of a teaser trailer about what a marijuana bar today might look like with me playing an agent, a Craigslist agent, which is another show I did a long time ago. But that's actually the show that I sent to Tom.
All right, can we play it real quick?
It's called Buds. Yeah.
I'm Pat Walsh, reporting live from what was formerly known as the Secret Room, an illegal marijuana speakeasy once owned by Buddy Valentine, a washed-up, has-been, mediocre rapper known as Italian Ice.
I'm Buddy Valentine, and this is my joint.
Bud's Joint, the first marijuana cafe since the legalization of marijuana in New York City.
I've been cooking with cannabis for over 20 years, and I love cooking.
Cheers.
Cheers. I'm Ron. I'm a silent partner at Bud's Joint. I invested because Buddy is a culinary genius.
I've designed an incredible edible menu with THC-infused food and drinks.
You know what? I'm going to start with a gin and chronic, and then bring me an order of Rasta pasta.
1 ganja lasagna, and 1 Long Island iced tea HC.
I'd recommend a cannabis Cosmo or a margarita.
I'll take the doobie dumplings and the bangtan soup.
I would like a Bloody Mary, Juana.
And I own my own talent agency, CLA.
CLA. It stands for Craigslist Agent. He represents most of those costume characters that you see in Times Square.
Guys, I'm working on this really hot gig coming up this weekend on Long Island. Call me on Monday. It's a corporate event.
CLA.
All I need to do is sign one big name, and boom, I hit the big time. Jackie, the joke man, Martling, I love your work. The Howard Stern Show, the radio show. I'm an agent with CLA. I'd love to represent you.
CLA? That's big. Who's on your client list?
I work with just the best of the best on Craigslist.
Craigslist? Craigslist?
I'm king of the list.
Get the out of here!
Tonight is big. I'm hosting the first ever open mic night at Bud's Joint.
Welcome everybody to the open mic night at Bud's Joint. I'm your host, Ronnie B. Good. How's it going? All right.
Ron says that he can get me some celebrities in tonight. We'll see.
Hey, listen, guys, we got some celebrities in the audience, so, if you wouldn't mind, respect their privacy. Don't bother them. Is that cool? Cool. It's showtime!
I am Melania.
Ron's got some of the worst acts I've ever seen.
Buddy was my first client. He had a top 500 Billboard hit. He was known as Italian Ice.
I got something to say it loud. I'm Italian Ice, I'm a Guido and I'm proud. I got something to say it loud. I'm Italian Ice, I'm a Guido and I'm proud.
All right, guys, that concludes our show.
What a night! What a show! The podcast, everything was a success! George Clooney, Snoop Dogg, I'm a genius! I'm a freaking genius!
Willie Nelson, George Clooney, Johnny Depp, and Snoop Dogg are suing me because Ron passed off his lookalikes for the real thing. I'm getting sued. Thanks, Ron.
You'll cheer for Buzz.
You'll cheer for Buzz.
You'll cheer for Buds.
You'll cheer for Buzz.
I've crapped out rolling dice, but you rolled that joint so nice.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Now let the both of us smoke some cannabis. Blackjack has ruined me. Purple haze has set me free. I took one hit and that was it. Past the shooby dooby dooby.
Yeah, they're right. Someone he says Snoop is on point. He was.
On point. Yeah, all those lookalikes. It's fun.
That was great. And now maybe you could be the DiMaggio boy.
Right. I know. Now I want DiMaggio in there.
You've always wanted to see DiMaggio, Johnny Depp, and Willie Nelson hang out together. Now we're.
I would pay more to see that. To smoke a joint with Joe DiMaggio, that would be a dream.
Oh yeah,
because he'd have the stories.
It's funny whenever people come with those scenarios like, oh, who would you want to hang out with or have dinner with, which celebrities? In my mind, I'm always thinking that they would be so bored with me being there, they would be angry.
That's in your dreams.
I know, but I always okay, let's see, who do I want to have? I'll have I don't know, President Kennedy and Einstein and Shakespeare, and I'm like, oh, I'd be so boring to them, man.
So, what is it that you hate about Italian hack comedians the most, Vincent?
Well, in many ways, we hate what we are, is what I'm saying.
I feel the same way about Lenny Clark. Stop making the wife beating jokes. Yeah, man.
All right, yes, bring up Kennedy, someone else who banged Marilyn Monroe. So it's
I know. Yeah. There were a few drafts where one of them brought up Kennedy, and I thought, no, don't open the door. Don't open that door. You're opening up a lot of closets and a lot of skeletons are flying out.
That would be Kennedy. Actually, Kennedy walks into the bar too. Oh, sorry, guys.
Am I? He's got a bullet in his head. He's like, "Is it too late for me, fellas?" And like, typical, like like vaudeville ending. You know, it's just DiMaggio and Arthur Miller look at the audience like. See, there's a television producer somewhere in Los Angeles who would have said that. Now, there's a good ending. You just have a slide whistle and cut the credits.
I feel bad. I think we've neglected Pete here. Pete, do you have anything that you want to plug too, or?
No. I'm just glad to be a part of it all tonight. You know, it's a lot of fun.
Come on, we're all friends here.
Definitely.
Yeah. But no, it's been great, guys. I really enjoyed this show.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man.
Great work on this. Tom, you want to come on real quick? Tom, help me plug some of the other stuff coming up on the Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling. Because I have to admit, I never remember what's coming up.
Yes, sir. How? Thank you. That was great, gentlemen. I really enjoyed watching the whole thing. You guys were all awesome.
Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. But yeah, we have a lot going on this week. We have a ton going on this week, actually. So tomorrow we have JD Shapiro's coming on for his part 2 of his interview, where he digs a little deeper into him writing Robin Hood Men in Tights and then going to court with Mel Brooks over it, that he to get his name on. I think that's going to be such great stories. He also worked with Stan Lee, so he's going to talk about his work with him. I think it's going to be a really fun interview. That's 3 to 4 tomorrow on Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling, the original recipe. At 4 p.m., we have Frank Vignola is doing Night Meds. And then in the evening, we have Hi, I'm Jason is having on the world's best Robin Williams impersonator as his guest. So him and Mark are going to interview him. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then on
Who decided he's the world's best? Is that a self-declared kind of thing?
You know what's funny? I did not know his I couldn't remember what his name was.
I'm the greatest Yaphet Kotto impersonator.
I couldn't remember his name, and Mendrinos knew who he was.
I think like the Hemingway lookalike contest.
But yes, let me get back to it. Thursday we have And the Word Is with Buddy Fitzpatrick. You know what? Let me bring up some of this. I think I have some photos from it. Word Is with Buddy Fitzpatrick. Then that will be followed by Scott Curtis with Behind the Bits. And he has Dustin Chafin on tomorrow, which is followed by John Poveromo, who has Art Alexakis from Everclear, the lead singer of Everclear. And I'm actually doing a MS fundraiser. My wife actually has MS, so they do the Walk for MS this weekend. And Art was actually diagnosed with MS, but he's had it for a while, but he always thought it was just being a rock star. Because he was always fatigued and shot and this and that. And I'm super interested about being on that show with John and digging in a little bit to that. I think that's going to be really interesting. So much going on. On Friday, we're going to be talking about how Twitch is making its way over into comedy on the Comedians Roundtable with a whole bunch of great comics, bigger and smaller from the Twitch side. And then we also have Melissa. Oh, I can't remember her last name. Melissa on Main Street with Gary Allen. He had Brian Baldinger on last week, and he has. Give me a Melissa Singer. Come on, Vinny, you got this.
Melissa Etheridge.
Not Etheridge, the other one.
Melissa Manchester.
Manchester, nailed her. There you go. That's who it is on Friday. Good job. Nice. Melissa Manchester on Friday. And then, the Beacon is on this Sunday, and that's about it. But we have a couple new shows joining us, too. So Tim's coming with Knockout TV with all boxing greats, so all big heavyweight champions that we're going to start interviewing on the station as well.
A very diverse channel we have here.
Yeah, I'll say.
Underlying theme is that there's usually a comedian somewhere in it. You know, so like there's a comedian hosting it, a comedian
somewhere in the nooks and crannies of your channel. There exist thousands of comedians like bedbugs descending on you.
That is the perfect analogy.
What's the perfect analogy?
You see one, there's actually 1,000 in the wall.
Oh. Can I get on? He's running the light. He's running the light. But thanks so much for having us, fellas.
Thank you, gentlemen.
That was a lot of fun. Man. Yeah, and we're back in 2 weeks. We do this every Tuesday at 8:30 here on Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling.
Indeed. Do you have it lined up for your next for the next show? Who it's going to be?
Absolutely not. But I've let you know.
I'm always keeping guessing, Vinny.
That's right.
Suspense.
Pete, do you have anything to plug before we go?
No. With the pandemic going on and everything, it was just kind of taking one day at a time.
I hear that. Thanks
Pete's
so
getting
much.
up tomorrow. That's the plug.
Yeah. A big one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, such a good time. Hope to see you
I have
all
one
again.
hack plug for anybody who's watching this shit.
Go
I
for
am
it.
I'm doing a return to my first road show of the year, May 14th in Somerset, New York, at Somerset Point. That's in New York.
Where do they get tickets for that?
They can go either on my Facebook page. There's a link on my Facebook or on my Instagram at Geezer Lynch at Instagram. There's a link there where you can order tickets. They're $15 a piece. It's going to be me, Mel Hancock, and Joe Pontillo, all great comics.
Yeah,
and it's about a 90-minute show. It's well worth coming out, and it's outdoors technically, so it's COVID safe, sort of.
what does technically outdoors mean? There's like a couple of windows.
Oh, it's like an outdoor veranda, like
running around.
I'll be actually doing my set on a wireless on one of those like the scooters, just circling the audience. Did I ever tell you about my fourth DUI? It was a lot like this.
All right, guys. Well, this has been DJS, Drink, Strokes, and Storytelling Community Theater. I'm Vinnie Nardiello. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Ron. Thank you,
Thank
Tom.
you, everybody. Thank you guys
Hey,
so
guys.
much. Great time.
Such a pleasure. Have a great one, guys. Night.
Have a good night.